We are Pro Cannabis Media.
Hi, welcome back to Cannabis Chat for a Monday afternoon. I'm Jimmy Young from Pro Cannabis Media. This is our Cannabinoid Monday, our Medicinal Monday theme show. We always bring on Alissa Merrill. She's come on with another friend of hers, Nikki Lawley, who has also been on guest on this show. And now we're going to go over the pond because we're going to learn a little bit about what's going on in the weed scene in Ireland. And joining us is Martin Condon. And Martin, you have a BSc honors in herbal science, but I do want to know right off the bat, please give us a little background on Martin's World podcast and what has been your cannabis story.
Yeah, certainly. And thanks very much for having me on, Jimmy, and Alissa there as well. My story started with cannabis back when I was about 15, 16, I suppose. My cousin convinced me to try it through peer pressure. And it wasn't until 17 then that I actually had my first brush with the law. And that started me down the road then, the journey of cannabis activism. Straight away, I went home. I looked up the law that I had broken, which was a Section 3 possession of a personal amount of cannabis. And I just went right to the roots of it, right back to America where it all began. And once I kind of was armed with this information, then there was really no stopping me. I've been a cannabis activist here now for over 10 years. And the latest part of my journey there was getting that honors degree in herbal science, so I can have a much stronger foundation on which to stand upon when speaking about cannabis. Because of my criminal past, I've kind of argued that there's no justification there for criminalizing me, and it was much more harmful to me as a person criminalizing me than cannabis ever was. When I kind of look at it, I think I was probably a person who would have self-medicated with cannabis from a young age. I would have been a very impulsive, highly energetic person. And I think cannabis calmed me down an awful lot. It allowed me to think for the first time, because I believe I really wasn't engaged with my thoughts at all before I encountered cannabis. There used to be just this thing that would come up in my mind and an action would quickly follow suit. There was no pondering upon what would be the consequences of these actions. So cannabis was very beneficial for me up until that first brush with the law. And then I've been caught with cannabis, geez, unfortunately, about maybe 13 times, maybe 14. I've found myself in front of the judge numerous times, and I've defended myself without the aid of the solicitors or the lawyers. And I got basically I got the benefit of donating to the charity box here in Ireland 9 times before I've received my first criminal conviction. And once I received that, then the gloves were off. I was really protesting forward. And I ended up having to do 5 days in Cork prison because I refused to pay the fines that the judge was giving me along with my convictions. It was principle. It wasn't really a money issue, although I do have 2 kids who I'd much rather spend my money on them than give it to a bloody judge for some meaningless fines. So that was kind of how I got into the whole world of cannabis and why I started a podcast then, which is Martin's World, to highlight the harms caused by prohibition to our society and the benefits legalization could bring. Ireland has been very much going through a journey there in discovering medical cannabis. We've about just less than 50 patients here now who have a license to be prescribed cannabis. And the latest news from Ireland then in regards to that is those patients no longer have to leave Ireland to go to Holland to collect that medicine. Because all along, patients actually had to leave Ireland to go to Holland to collect that medicine. So now they're going to be able to continue getting it delivered to their front door by some private courier. So there's a lot happening over here.
Do you see it replacing alcohol consumption, or where do you see it? It's got to be, as it's building, where do you see it replacing?
Yeah, well, in regards to adult use of cannabis, I think if we were to have it here, it would be a major boost to harm reduction when it comes to alcohol, because currently there is no alternative for adults who want to go out and enjoy their evening. It's just alcohol or alcohol or sobriety. And
Irish bar right now. I want to go to the platter and drink. Hearing your voice, I mean, I associate, like drinking, and I'm all about genetics, and So yes, like if there's something you could see it replacing, it would be alcohol consumption then.
Yeah, I think it would. I don't think it would replace it, but I think it would complement it in that, like, let's say if you went out for an evening and rather than sit down and have a couple of pints, you could actually have some fine tasting cannabis. I don't know, you could be a connoisseur and go for certain flavors, and you compare that with a wine. Then that would be a very sophisticated, well spent evening rather than just lashing back a couple of pints and chatting to the lads at the bar.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that either. But for
No.
me, slower is much better to go with
We were-
alcohol anyway.
I've seen a lot of bad falls, but even, I mean, I see there are terpenes now that don't even have cannabis in them, you know, that you can now add to alcoholic drinks, or alcohol, non-alcohol, whatever. And for energy, like, I think there's some really, you know, exciting, fun ways to, it sounds like, introduce into the beverage world, maybe. So we'll have to send some samples your way. We'll connect them after the show.
I look forward to that.
So what are the rules? You said there are. It sounds like there's some kind of a medicinal program, a caretaker program. Is that what I'm hearing in Ireland?
No, so currently there is no cannabis produced in Ireland, zero, except for what they call hemp. And
Yeah.
even the farmers there, they don't even want to call hemp cannabis. There's it's like the big C word, cannabis in the farming world. It's ridiculous that they won't even mention what they're growing is cannabis. So currently the only cannabis being prescribed to patients is coming from Holland. The majority of it's coming from Holland, yeah.
And the patients have to go to Holland to get it, yes?
The patients are somebody nominated by the patients. So the most prominent campaigner here is Vera Toomey, and her daughter is Ava Barry is the surname, but she suffers with epilepsy, Dravet syndrome. And yeah, so basically Vera or the husband Paul, one of the two of them had to go to Holland to get the medicine. So because of the whole coronavirus thing now and the restrictions on travel, those patients that didn't have to go to get that medicine anymore. It got delivered to them by a private courier. So our pharmacists here still can't dispense this medicine. It's still very much a taboo product. It's blacklisted for whatever reason. It's not a recognized medicine here still.
And Epidiolex is found, like, you guys can't even get Epidiolex.
Epidiolex, Sativex, Marinol, and I think Aurora's CBD soft gel caps. I think they're the 4 products now that are approved for use here. But even then, patients still can't get it. It's ridiculous. They have 3 conditions in which people can get access to cannabis here in Ireland. That's for multiple sclerosis. You have the nausea in regards to chemotherapy, and then you have the medicine-resistant epilepsy. So those are the 3 conditions. They've excluded chronic pain, which is the big kick in the teeth, really, for the patients here.
Is the opioid epidemic, I mean, is it bad there? Opioid situation, I mean, it's horrible here. Is it?
Yeah, there's a big problem here with the prescription of painkillers and the abuse of those painkillers as well. I think there's a lot of people with addictions out there who don't really talk about it, I think. But yeah, I think cannabis, if it was made available as a medicine, it definitely would give, again, people an alternative there. But the big one would be educating our professionals here, because it's one thing having it available, but our professionals are still in this kind of reefer madness era of belief that cannabis is some sort of a dangerous thing that has no medicinal benefits, you know.
Oh my gosh, well,
Now-
that's crazy, and they're wrong. And so we'll be happy to help you
Yeah.
and help educate, because that's
Yeah,
just wrong. Just
Martin
kidding.
doesn't need any more heart problems, though, you know, from the law anyway.
I was recently up in court actually for possession of €10 worth of cannabis. I got caught with a hand-rolled joint there last year, April of 2019, while I was out working. I actually didn't even realize it was in the car, but I got caught with it. And I was in court the other day they got a €400 fine on a conviction, but I'm appealing it, and I'm going to try to use our constitutional rights and our human rights for grounds of it was an illegal search. What happened on that evening, I refused to consent to the search, so the guards should have arrested me there and then and bring me back to the station to search me in line with my constitutional rights, but they didn't. They actually bullied me. They grabbed the keys out of the ignition of my car and very much intimidated me out of the car. And I said it to him, I goes, guards, I'm getting out of my car now, but goes, not consenting, it's under duress. He was like, you're intimidating me. There's two of you, there's one of me. I was delivering food for the Chinese at the time. I had 3 deliveries and I was only 50 yards away from the Chinese store. No smell of cannabis coming from my car.
Wow.
And they just literally profiled me and my car and my looks. And you see I'm wearing a hoodie. This is me.
That happened, huh? Wow.
Well, I'll tell you, it's happened to people of color in this country for decades. Okay, and unfortunately, they go to jail for years for possession of cannabis in the amounts that you had. And needless to say, there's a national movement called the Last Prisoner Project that's looking to get the jails out, getting people out of jail and getting their records expunged. But I do want to go back to, has there been any movement at all? I mean, you say you're an advocate, you've got your podcast platform, your story is certainly compelling, Martin, I got to tell you. Have we made any progress at all? We were just talking to a CEO of a biotech company out of California who's basically building the case, not only her own personal anecdotal story, but also through the science. And internationally now, the WHO has recommended to take it off its least restrictive list internationally, and the UN has also. Is there any hope in Ireland? Is, I guess, where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I think there's certainly hope. There's a big movement building here, and I don't have much hope for the government. I think if the government are to do anything here, they need to be forced to do it. And for me, civil disobedience from the activists now going forward is going to be a big part of the movement. Again, I interviewed Pepe Rivera there with the podcast from Mexico. And he talked about how down in Mexico, they used plants, they planted seeds, and those were protest plants. And as well, when they have their smoke ups outside of their Senate down there, their joints, whatever they're smoking is a form of protest. So for me, I think that's the big way forward now. Our prisons here in Ireland are at capacity. Our court systems are a joke. If as you heard there, I got caught April 2019 and I didn't get to court until September 2020. I'm now appealing that decision there recently, so it's going to take another year or two before that appeal comes up. So the way I see it is we can basically use the people, the activists, the people out there who want to see the law change to lock up the system, just cause it to come to a halt by just sheer people just going in civil disobedience, going into the Garda stations, the cops here, and presenting yourselves. I done a protest back in August where I planted cannabis seeds in a pot in public. I invited members of the public to come and plant the seeds. And afterwards, after that little demonstration on the street, I marched to the local guard station cop shop here. And I presented myself. I said, I have cannabis seeds in this pot. This is an illegal act of cultivation of cannabis. I said, I would like to be processed now for this crime. And I done that live on Facebook and things like that. And I haven't got any feedback from it yet from the authorities, but I don't expect that either. They said they're sending the pot off for analysis, but all that was in there was seeds.
Let me ask you, and I apologize for not studying my Irish Constitution, okay?
Yeah.
In America, you can get hundreds of thousands of signatures to get a question about the legality on a ballot. Mm-hmm. Is that even an option in Ireland?
We've think kind of through petitions, all right. It's kind of an instrument of it's almost an online process now, where people can put a petition up on mygov.ie. It's just like a website, and it can be endorsed there. But really, there's nothing at all happens with it. There's petitions that go up there and they remain there. Petitions are they're more symbolic than anything really here. They don't have any real function within the law except for this kind of make-believe petition system that they have here. I don't see it as being effective. Now what they do have coming up, which is a citizens' assembly, this was promised in our program for government recently. So Ireland kind of had an election there in February of 2020. I actually was running in it myself. I ran for the Dáil here as well. But as part of that government, when they managed to whip it together, I didn't get elected in, obviously. But as part of that government program, they agreed that they were going to hold a citizens' assembly to have a discussion on drug policy. And the citizens' assembly is a big thing here because we had laws change on our abortion and on gay marriage here in Ireland. And those things happened after they went through this citizens' assembly process.
Gotcha.
So we were hoping that they would call this soon, and they'd taken 99 citizens with a chairperson, which is a judge, I believe, and they get presentations given to them, and then the 99 citizens get to make a vote at the end of that, and that vote then is supposed to sway the government in the direction that they should go on, say, our drug policy. And we were hoping that they would made some announcement by now, but there still has been nothing there, even though it's promised in the program for government here in Ireland. So I think that's the most promising thing going forward, but it's just it hasn't phased out yet. It hasn't. There's no date set as of yet.
And obviously you love your country and you'd never think about moving just for the sake of cannabis, right?
I was told move by a judge before, and my answer to him was, Judge, I love my country and I've kids here and I've a family here, and I was like, I don't want to leave. I believe that these laws are wrong. And he said, well, the court isn't the place to argue the law. And I was just gobsmacked that a judge would say this. I was, because the judges have power of discretion. I was arguing, there's no justification here for this, judge. I was like, show me my victim here in the court. Is there any reason why you should punish me? I was like, even these punitive, these penalties of fines, the people who really getting punished are my kids. They're the ones who benefit from me financially. I don't have any luxurious kind of a lifestyle. I have 2 kids. The money I make goes into keeping the roof over our heads, the food in our fridge, and the electricity on, and I barely have anything left to kind of pay my fuel and my insurance and tax and stuff on my car. I come from kind of a live a lean lifestyle, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. I'm a student for the best part of my life.
Yeah, but you're not, you're still fighting the fight, which I give you a lot of credit for. It's not easy, especially when you're in a foreign country. Everybody in the United States thinks that they've got it tough here. When they hear the stories of what you're going through in Ireland, I think that will, pardon the expression, will sober up a lot of the people that don't realize how good we have it here in the States. There are now 15 legal states, including where I'm talking to you from, actually where the women are talking, we're all from Massachusetts. And you've got a few brethren in the Boston area, just in case you didn't know that.
Yeah, I know a few people. Yeah, I did. It's just a big Irish spot.
Yeah, but I wonder if there's a way for you to solicit people up from this side of the pond to help your cause in Ireland. Again, you seem to be someone who's extremely passionate and dedicated to this, no matter what. Have you ever reached out to the people in the United States, the pro-cannabis movement, if you will?
I've reached out to some people over time, but one person who has been very present over here is Martin O'Brien. I interviewed him recently. He's the owner of Foxworthy Farms down in the Sonoma County. So he's kind of active here in Ireland in helping the patients. He's done work in the past with Patients for Safe Access in America. So they're now trying to pay it out to other countries, and Ireland is one because of Martin's connection here. So yeah, there's certainly people from across the pond looking over here in order to extend a helping hand, and it's more than welcome. If there's anybody out there right now watching, listening, we're more than welcome to help us out.
Well, we're gonna get your contact info and stuff like that certainly before you go, so you can get.
I also set up Students for Sensible Drug Policy. I don't know if you're aware of that organization. I set one up here. I didn't set up the organization, but when I was doing my herbal science degree, I set up the Students for Sensible Drug Policy Society in Cork, IT. And basically it was a society around harm reduction and drug awareness information. And it was a big hit there, and it still is active right across Ireland. I'm due to go back to college next month to do a master's in biochemistry. And I'll be getting back involved again with the SSDP there. But they're right across America as well. So they're another group that are present over here too. And tremendous work being put in by the students and activists within that network too.
Yeah.
What are the rules and regs? You mentioned hemp is being grown in Ireland. What are the rules and regulations of CBD products in whether it's topicals or infused in any beverages?
Well, I'm very glad you asked this because there's a growing case at the moment. There's been the sale of CBD flowers here. So CBD flowers are flowers with less than 0.2% THC. So this
Right.
is what they use as a definition for hemp. But it in our law in Ireland, it says cannabis is illegal. The flowers are illegal. So despite any THC at all, it's the flower itself is illegal. So our farmers here are actually only allowed to use the stem and the seeds. Any farmer in Ireland who grows the hemp plant has to destroy the flower, the most valuable part of it, because of our crazy backwards laws. And it's all around the Misuse of Drugs Act 1977, which basically defines cannabis as the mature flowers and leaves of the cannabis genus plant.
I mean, I'm at a loss for words here, Alissa. I mean, and you. I mean, this is. I'm really glad that we connected. Okay, because it definitely puts in perspective how far the states has come in comparison to other parts of the world, like Ireland.
Look for that interview. I mean, honestly, all you'll have to do is show the person who we were just speaking to, and she's literally pulling together, university research and hospital EHR databases and, genetic clones. I mean, it's there, and it's crazy to think that people don't believe it.
Well, I do another part of Martin's World, which is 420 News. And as part of that, I kind of I report news from across the world. And when I was reporting on the New Zealand vote there recently, a part of that, they were highlighting how the natives there, the Maori, they're by and large, they're more punished by the laws there than, say, the non-natives, the kind of the white guys coming in. I only reported there earlier today in South Africa, in Cape Town, there was about 300 or 400 Rastafarians out marching because what they're saying is they're being discriminated and kept out of the cannabis industry, while they say the big white pharmaceutical companies are getting licenses in South Africa to grow cannabis and make the products there from it, while the locals are still being punished and beating, as they're reporting, down there from it. So these cannabis laws, the drug war, it's just been a tool of discrimination right across the world, from where I'm kind of viewing on it. And it's been my experience too as a person in Ireland.
It sounds like, I think you started this by saying, you stick with the science, and there's science there. And I think that's the honest, that's true. And I think that's usually the safest way to go with the best results from what we can tell. So good luck. And if right, Jimmy, I'm sure we can introduce him to plenty of people. Help.
We know plenty of people, and actually, I know a lot of people with Irish connections. And I'm gonna, who I'm gonna talk to? I know who I'm gonna talk to. Walter Sullivan. Alissa, you know Walter. This guy was the head of the Alcoholic Beverage Commission here in Massachusetts for a long time, and now he's a pro-cannabis advocate and an attorney. And actually, Martin, I'm going to introduce you to Walter because I'll be a great guest. Okay, I get it. But he'd be a great guest for you as well, because let's face it, he's very proud of his heritage. And if that's the least I could do is connect you. But I got to ask you a question. Do you know the origination of 420?
I hear a couple of myths around it, but I don't know, is there any real confirmed story?
Yes.
There is a confirmed story. So what I believe
I tell it on this show every single time we do it. Would you like me to enlighten you a little bit or not?
Dude, let me see if it's what I believed it to be. I believed it was the college students who met up for the smoke around 420, but is that a...
I love this. This is why, the telephone game. You say you whisper something in somebody's ear, and then they tell the next person. Then by the time it gets around the room, it's a completely different thing. Okay, so here's the truth. And by the way, Google knows this, right? Because Google knows everything. In San Rafael, California, in 1971, there was a bunch of guys. They called themselves the Waldos, and the Waldos used to meet across the street from the high school at the Louis Pasteur statue at 4:20 to catch a little buzz. Now, law enforcement, being those sharp people that they are, and I guess you've had a little experience with them too, picked up the fact that it was at 420, there was public consumption of cannabis going on, and they adopted that as their call, when they have a police call, oh, check out the corner Vine and Main Street, there's 420 going on. The cannabis community obviously adopted the 420 call, and it has now been absorbed, and it's also now a holiday. Well, it's not a holiday, but April 20th is the celebration of cannabis here.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. And if you don't believe me, Google the Waldos and 420, and you'll see that whole story. And one of our jobs is to track these guys down and get at least one of them to come on and talk a little bit about it. But that's where it all started. And that is not a myth. Those are facts. Okay.
I'm delighted you shared that with me now. I'm enlightened. This was an evening well spent.
Well, Martin Condon, we wish you the best of luck. Keep up the fight. I've got a lot of respect for what you've gone through for this cause. And Lord knows I'm the type of guy that definitely wants to connect you with others. So I'm going to do my best to at least get you to Walter Sullivan. You'll enjoy him. And by the way, Walter also hosts a podcast called In the Weeds. Okay. But my In the Weeds was first. Okay. So In the Weeds with Jimmy Young preceded In the Weeds with Walter Sullivan. That being said, Martin Condon, how can people get in touch with you?
I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and on YouTube also. So those are the four places I'm most active. And I always do my best to respond to messages and comments left there from people who are asking all sorts of questions. The most common question I get is regarding cannabis and medicines, and people coming to me with ailments, saying, I have this condition, would cannabis be beneficial for me? It breaks my heart being so much not being able to help these people physically, but I can give them the information, but I wish so much I could use the skills I have in growing cannabis and procuring the medicines. But sadly, I'm restricted. I can't do that here legally yet.
Yet. I love that. All right. And it's Martin's World podcast, right?
It is Martin's World podcast on all of those platforms mentioned.
There you go. Well, Martin Condon, great to talk with you. Great to officially chat as well. And I know you know how to get in touch with me. So you stay on me and I'll reach out to you and we'll schedule something. And it'll be great to continue this conversation.
Brilliant. Thanks very much again for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure, Jimmy and Alissa, and your friend Alissa as well. I didn't catch her name.
Nikki, she's an advocate.
Nikki.
Definitely have to have her on your show as well. She's a nurse, an advocate. She's everything. The language you speak. So
that's right.
I'm filling up my schedule for January, so I'll be in touch.
There you go. And keep up the good fight, as they say. All right, Martin Condon, appreciate it. We're going to take a break. We'll come back on the other side with our final guest of this Monday. And it's the green nurse herself, Sherry Tutkus. So don't go away.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.